Hi, my name is Josh Lockheed, Trading Evangelist here at QuoteWerks. Today in this intermediate video, we will continue our discussion on the QuoteWerks Layout Designer. In the beginner video, we discussed the different fields that can populate the layouts, how to generally navigate the Layout Designer, and how to quickly take an existing layout and make it your own. In today's video, we'll dive a bit deeper, exploring how the layouts are built and execute, the different options you have when formatting a layout, and how to use filters to conditionally format different line types. Here I have a quote that I've created including data center networking, a desktop computer, and some accessories. The quote includes the networking as a grouped bundle with a grouped header, a heading and subtotal line for our computer, and a section header for our accessories. As we continue this demonstration, you'll see how these different lines can be configured to be conditionally formatted based on their line type. To access the Layout Designer, we'll click on the Deliver icon on the standard toolbar. We'll start by reviewing the layout that we began to customize in the beginner video by selecting it and hitting Preview. You can see we have a quote populated with the products from the quote workbook. We have our bundle, our headings, and our subtotal line. While this layout looks pretty good, there are a few changes I'd like to make, so I'll go and exit out of the preview, click back on Deliver, select the layout we just previewed, and hit Clone to create a copy of it. This is best practice when working with the Layout Designer. Now that we have our layout cloned, we can now click on the layout that we just cloned and go to Edit to open the Layout Designer. As you can see here, we have our layout from our previous session, and it has the company logo, company picture, which is our Cisco logo, our company information, our to information prepared by, introduction notes, so on and so forth. What I'd like to do quickly is just review the layout here of the Layout Designer and talk about some of the different components. So if we look up across the top, you've got these different drop-down menus. One thing I'd point out is the undo feature is a great feature if you ever make a mistake and need to go back and redo something. But then there's other options here like insert, format, section, and report. And all of these options are also included in the right-click menu here if you wanted to go in and use that instead. So there's a couple different ways to do things here. And then underneath our drop-down menus, we have our standard toolbar. We've got the save options, close options, and then we get into the actual components that build the layout. We've got our fields, which are our fields that are pulling from either the QuoteWerks system or potentially your contact manager. We've got our labels, which are typically used as static fields to denote what a particular field might be. Different lines that we can use in our formatting. We can add pictures, different sections, formulas, system information, and dialogue. And then next we have our formatting options. We can change our font color, our font effects, the background color, alignment of text, as well as the borders that might be included on different fields. So again, this is all great information. You can use these here, or you could always right-click. You have, again, insert, the filter option here, which is going to be something we're going to talk about quite a bit. Text color effects, so on and so forth. So all different tools that you can use. You can either use the drop downs, the top menu, or you've got the right click option here. Now I do want to talk about one of the different components, which are the field components. These fields are being pulled from different tables, again either in the QuoteWerks system or potentially in an external contact manager that you've connected to QuoteWerks. The tables that we have access to here are going to be document headers, so that's going to be information that's associated with the document itself. And this is going to be information that's included on the different tabs within the quote workbook, except for document items. Document items are going to be represented in the document items tables, so things about the items that are included in the actual quote. Application is going to be information that's pulling from the QuoteWerks application, like company information, so on and so forth. And then contact manager would be fields that are available from your external contact manager to pull in to the layout as well. So this is all really good information, and these are the building blocks of the entire layout that we have here. Now I just want to point out that here under each of these different tables, we're going to have two different types of fields. We're going to have macro fields, and we're going to have regular standard fields. Macro fields have an ampersand before them, and those represent some work that's being done behind the scenes to create that field. An example of that would be build to address. This is going to take the different information in the build to fields, like the address information, the city, the state, and print it all as a single output in this macro. Conversely, if we go down to our standard fields here, these are going to be a one-for-one representation of what we have on the quote. So for example, build to address 1 is going to print what is included in that first address line for that build to contact. Just like that, we also have, for example, created by. This is going to pull from the created by field in the document headers table. One other thing I want to point out is that we do have up in the File menu Printer Setup. So if at any point you're working with this layout and you need a little bit more real estate, you could always come in and change the size or the orientation. I'll show you here if you were to change, for example, from portrait to landscape. It gives you a little bit more landscape here or real estate on the right-hand side so that you can go in and add additional information. This might be important if you have additional header fields that you want to include in your quote. And then another thing to point out here in the paper size is that when it comes to the Layout Designer, it can do a lot of different things. It can print quotes, orders, invoices. We talked about in our beginner course how it can be used to create management reports as well. Well, it can also be used to print information from the QuoteWerks system in a number of different ways. So for example, we have envelope layouts, we have label layouts, there's other size pages that you can print. So this particular Layout Designer, while we're talking about it being used for quotes, potentially invoices or orders, you have the ability to go in and select your paper size so you could potentially print out labels, packing slips, envelopes. Really, the list is endless and dependent upon what your interest is and how much you want to leverage your QuoteWerks system. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK after putting it back to portrait and leaving it on letter because I want to keep it that way for now. And what I want to talk about next here is just a general layout of the Layout Designer and the report and how it's printed. So if you look at this layout, you'll see that we have a number of different sections. We've got the report header 2, we've got the report header 3, we've got the page header, we've got detail section 1, and then we've got a number of different report footers. Now the way that this form executes when you hit preview or if you hit send email and the PDF is being attached to that email, it's going to go through and it's going to print from the top of the document to the bottom of the document, starting with the report headers. And it's going to print the report headers at the beginning of the report. It's going to print the page headers at the beginning of each page. It's going to print the detail sections based on the filters that you set for the particular item types, which we'll talk about more. And it's going to actually cycle through each detail section for each item that you have until it finds or does not find a section that matches its particular item type. And we'll kind of clarify that a little bit here down the line. We then have our report footers, and the report footers are going to all print after the detail section. Now I want to quickly go out to another layout that we have here, as the layout quote Sunlight does a really good job at outlining what these different detail sections are and the formulas or filters, I should say, that are being used to determine what prints in each detail section. So if we look at this particular layout, we've got not just one detail section, but 14 of them. What that means is there are 14 different groups of line types that we want to format in different ways based on the filters that we've set up for each of those detail sections. So just to clarify again here, what's going to happen is after the page header prints, it's going to go into detail section 1 and it's going to determine item 1 on our quote. Does it match the filter that we have set up here? I'm just going to quickly show the filter. Does it match this? If it does, print the line. If it doesn't, move to the next detail section, determine whether it matches that. If it does, print it. If not, continue to cycle through the detail sections. Important piece of clarification here is regardless of what detail section it prints in, it doesn't change the order that the items are included in the quote. So let's say you have an item at position number 2. even if it's using detail section 5, it's only going to use the formatting from that detail section. It's not going to be changed in the order that it is printed on the quote. So these detail sections are really only being used to determine what is the item type, does the item type match what we want to print in this particular detail section, and if it does, let's use the formatting from that detail section. Now it is important to clarify here that using these filters is an important thing, because if you have multiple sections that match a certain item's criteria, there's the potential that you could duplicate items on a quote. So for example, if you've got two sections that call upon the same line type, then you're going to ultimately have those products printed twice using the formatting of those two different sections. Now if we look at this particular layout here and the section selection criteria, we're using a filter, and the filter is just a string of text that calls upon different parts of what we are working with here. In this case, it is pulling on the document items table, and it's calling out line types that equal 1. So what does that mean? And I think that's an important and probably a good opportunity for us to talk about this. When you are working with our system, the line types and the line attributes are both going to have specific designations dependent upon what line type it is and what attributes it has associated with them. So if we scroll down here in our developer integration notes, and this is a really cool resource that you can use if you're working with layouts, it actually shows you what the designations are for the different line types as well as line attributes. So for example, if we're working with filters and we want to only include products and services, we would want for our filter to be equal to line type equals 1. If we wanted it to be comment, we would be line type equals 2, so on and so forth. Likewise, if we wanted to conditionally format our line items based on their line attributes, we could filter using the values that are here. And each of these values maps to a different line attribute that can be set for that particular line in the quote workbook. I know there's a lot of information here, and this is probably new to a lot of people, but just know that in the QuoteWerks system, there's a designation for each different line type and a different designation for each different line attribute. And you can use those to create your filters for your different detail sections. So we're going to move back over to QuoteWerks in the Layout Designer. And what I would like to do here is now move into our particular layout and start to use some of the filters that we have to build out that particular layout. So we're going to go back to the JL Test 1 layout. We're going to hit Edit. And the first thing that I would like to do is, if we actually preview this, you'll notice that we have our nice header here on the first page. This is a report header. But if we click down to our second page, it doesn't really include any of that header information here on the second page, meaning that if someone's scrolling through this document, they might not really know what's going on. What company is this particular quote from? What is that information about the quote number? It's all only included on the first page. Let's say we wanted to include it on every page. Well, we can easily do that by going into our Layout Designer and changing the way that things are laid out here. So as we discussed, report headers are going to print at the beginning of the report, and the page header is going to print at the beginning of every page. So naturally, we would want to include whatever information we want to print at the beginning of every page in our page header section. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and get rid of the background color here, and I am going to also move what we have here down to make room for what we want to include at the top of every page. Because we are going to be using our page header, and our page header we're going to set up to only print at the beginning of each page, we want to make sure that our report header also includes the line heading information that we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and lasso them, copy and paste, and go ahead and bring this up into our report header. So again, that means it's going to print at the beginning of the report. We'll go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. And now for our page header, let's say we wanted to include our company information, the quote designation, the quote number, and the document date. We can take whatever fields it is that we want to copy into our page header, copy and paste, and then go ahead and paste them into that page header. So what this means is right now, the report header is going to print on the first page, and the page header is going to print on every page. Now, that might be good for some, but in my instance, I don't want to duplicate that page header or this heading information on the first page. So what we want to do is we actually want to exclude the first page from having this page header print. And let me show you real quick what I mean if we go ahead and hit Save and Preview without the filter. You'll see that we have our logo and company information up top, and then we duplicated the header in our page header here, meaning it's printing both as the report header and the page header, and it's printing that page header on every page. Now, with that being said, we don't want it that way. We want to make sure that we only have this header on the first page, and that this header here is only included on every subsequent page. Well, we can easily set that up by using filters. Now, if we go into our page header, right-click and click Filter, we're going to call upon some system fields to get this filter set up. So here we have, if the system field page is not equal to 1, then we want this to print. So basically, we want that page header to print on every page that is not page 1. So if we hit OK and go to Save and Preview, you'll see that that heading is now not included on that first page, but it is included on the second page and will be included on every subsequent page. Now you will notice here as well that there's some kind of erroneous lines here, and then there's some lines here on the second page that we might want to get rid of. That's relatively easy to do. You can go around, and if you lasso, sometimes they're hard to see, but you can see that there's, for example, one line here that we'll want to go ahead and get rid of. I believe there's one over here as well. This is just, again, cleaning things up a little bit, making it so that it looks a little bit cleaner for us. I think I've got them. I'm just checking to see. I love using this lasso option because it'll show you anything that is included in that lasso, and you can see again how some of these lines, just the way that they're set up, can be hard to find. So if I go back to Save and Preview, you'll now see that that line that we had over here has been removed, and the line that we had up the top has also been removed. Great. So next, I want to also just add a couple detail sections with some filters, kind of like what we saw in the sunlight layout. And what we can do first is take a look at our detail section 1 and see what filters there are there, and there isn't anything. But let's say that this is the layout that we want to use anytime we have a product or service. So that's going to be line type equals 1. So the format that we're going to use here is we're going to call upon the document items table. We're going to call upon the line type attribute, and we only want to print the lines when those line types are equal to 1. So that's the filter that we're going to use. And now only items that match that criteria are going to be printed in detail section 1. And let's go ahead and hit Save and Preview. You'll see that we no longer have our headings, we no longer have our subtotals, our section header is gone too, our group header is even gone, right? So a lot of things have changed here, and it's just based on the fact that we've said we only want to print items that are equal to that line item type 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build out different detail sections based on the different types of line types that we're going to want to ultimately print. So we're going to go ahead and right click and go to Section, and we're going to add a detail section 2. Now detail section 2 will say we want that to be used for our headers. So for our headers, we're going to want to print the description. We'll copy and paste that down here into this field. And that would be good enough for our detail section 2 in terms of what we want to include in it. But we want to make sure that this pops a little bit, that our headers look a little bit different. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and adjust the font. We'll make it bold, and we'll make it slightly bigger as well. And what we could do here as well is just in terms of showing the formatting, we'll use a different background color. We'll just go ahead and we'll use this salmonish color here and hit OK. So I'm going to just quickly go back to our preview and show you that now we have a lot of different items that are now using that formatting. And the reason for that is that we have not applied a filter yet. Let's go back. Let's go to Detail Section 2. Click on Filter. Again, we want this to be for our header. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with our products and services, except this time we're going to call upon 256, which is the designation for our headers. So if we hit OK and go back to Save and Preview, you'll see that now only our header field has that color. So it's a pretty cool, quick option that you have to change the formatting. And again, using that filter, we're only capturing those header fields. Now we do have section headers, so we want to make sure that our section headers are included here as well. So we'll come in and add a third detail section by going to Insert, Section, and Detail Section 3. Now in this instance, we want to use the description like we did in our heading, but we want to include an extended price as well. So we're just going to copy and paste those fields down from our other section. And a nice tool that we have here as well is if you click on a field and then click on another field and go to Align, you can align them based on different parts of that box. So I'm going to align top edge, and you can see that those are now aligned with one another. Another option that you have to do here is if you wanted to say make them the same height, you can come down to Sizing and click Same Height. Just different formatting options that you have here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up our Detail Section 3. And I am also going to change the color on our detail section to match the formatting of our header field as well. So we'll go ahead and right click, background color, use background color, and we'll use that salmon color again. And then we'll also go ahead and bold our extended price. Going back to font. All right, so that is all good. Go ahead and make this extended price field a little bit bigger. And we want to add our filter. So again, in this instance, we want this to just be for our section headers. So it's going to be the same format that we had before, except in this case, we're going to call upon line item equals 32. And now if we go back to Save and Preview, you'll see that we now have our accessories section header along with our extended price. So that's great. There are two other items that we have included in our quote that we want to make sure we create a detail section for. One is going to be our subtotal, which includes both subtotal and running subtotal, as well as our group header. So we're going to go in and add another detail section. Go to Insert, Section, Detail Section 4. And in this instance, again, this is going to be subtotal. So we're going to go ahead and copy our extended price down here. And we're just going to put a label in here for subtotal. If we double click on that label, it'll pop open our edit label. And we can put subtotal there. And we might also just want to make sure we bold that too. So we'll come up to font, make it black, hit OK. All right. I'm going to just move this over a little bit there. Now we have our subtotal extended price. And let's say we also want to include this as being that salmon color. We can easily go and change that there. All right. So we've got our products, our headers, our section headers, our subtotals and running subtotals. But now we need to go in and create our filter. Again, it's very similar, except this time instead of capturing just one item type, we are going to actually capture two different line types here. We're going to capture 4, which is for our subtotals, and 16, which is for our running subtotals. So that's good to go. We're going to create one more section, and we'll do that again by going to Insert, Section, Detail Section 5. And this is going to be a section for our group header. So it's actually going to be very similar in this instance to our Detail Section 3, in that we want a description as well as our extended price. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those two fields and paste them. And then I am going to click to paste, and it pastes right in there in Detail Section 5. We'll go ahead to our background color for our group headers. We're going to go ahead and use that same color and hit OK. And then one last time, we're going to come in and hit Filter. And in this case, we're going to filter for line type equals 8. Again, calling upon the document items table, line type attribute equals 8. OK. So now if we go to save and preview, you'll see that we have our grouped bundle here. We've got our heading, we've got our subtotal, we've got our section header, and then we've got the different products that are included in the quote. All of them are being produced or formatted based on the filters that we set in our Layout Designer. As you have seen, the Layout Designer is a powerful tool that can be used to build robust, customized quotes and other documents rather quickly. The Layout Designer provides you with flexibility to adjust how you display your quotes to your customers and can help align QuoteWerks outputs with your company's brand standards. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, feel free to contact our team at 407-248-1481.